When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous. About the past and about the future.
Welcome back to Draft Vice. We are here doing some fantasy. Yo, it is the Big Damn Wide Receiver Show. You know why it's the Big Damn Wide Receiver Show? Because wide receiver is such a big fucking position. And here we have our boy Ricky.
It's me.
And our boy Steve.
It's him.
They're both boys. I'm a boy. We all boys. Hey, boys.
B-O-I.
Gender specific.
Yeah, it's 2019. Get it together.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do you identify as a plural?
I'm just a
Identify as a pen.
kid. I'm just a kid.
And life is a nightmare.
It's not 2019.
Apparently.
It's 2005.
Nightmare. Did you see the preview for Hard Knocks with John Gruden?
Oh, God.
When he's like, I don't want you to have a dream. I want you to give other people nightmares. I cannot wait for it. Looks good.
I have zero love for John
Something
Gruden.
about him is just like he's not really a coach. He just plays one in a movie.
I'm still trying to. He's also the only person that he has his own accent. Like John Gruden's accent is from the Grudens. That's it. Like it's like Chicago, Michigan.
I feel like they hired the coach from Friday Night Lights. Would have been the same thing.
Yeah.
All right. So we're talking fantasy football. We are talking receivers.
You wouldn't know it by the start of this conversation.
No, not at all, because we were talking about John Gruden.
We're talking new shows on HBO.
And so right off the bat, what is usually your strategy for receivers when you guys do drafts before we get into real rankings? And
Round
stuff
2,
like
round 3.
I think what comes, but as far as my strategy and how I rank them, or when I get them, I tend to go heavy on wide receivers in my drafts, as you've seen in years past.
King Julio over here.
Yeah, I usually try to go. It's very rare when I'll pick a running back first, but it does happen, and then I end up. It might not be the best strategy because I've been screwing myself over recently, but in terms of rank, that's true. In terms of ranking them, I try to. The biggest thing that affects their ranking has nothing to do with them. And I think that has to do with their quarterback and their situation, everybody around them. What other receivers are there? Are they getting pass protection and time to throw the ball? Is their quarterback good? Is their quarterback Eli?
Is there just changing coaching? Is there a change in coaching staff? Is there consistency? It's mitigating risk.
Right. And if again, even if the quarterback's good, but they're more methodical. Like I like Julio Jones, big play and all this other stuff, but sometimes Matt Ryan goes through his reads like he's supposed to, but it's almost to an annoying degree where he spreads the ball around. If you take away Julio, he's like, okay, I'll dump it off to my running backs. I'll throw it to Calvin Ridley. I'll throw it to that big white guy. That's just what they do. And you have to take that into account when you're comparing like at the top Julio versus maybe OBJ versus
DeAndre Hopkins.
See, DeAndre Hopkins is my number one, and I see he's your number one. So we'll just jump into that rankings. Unless you wanted to give your reasoning for why you voted for Quincy Enunwa.
Nope.
Did you put Quincy in one?
Nope. We all got the same
number one.
Same number one.
I think it's pretty simple. Is that it's consistency. He's in the same offense. He's done really well. He's been 1 or 2 the last 2 or 3 years. And actually 3 out of the last 4 years he's been like the 1 or 2. And then there was 1 year when he had Brock Osweiler throwing to him. He was like wide receiver 17.
And that's what I mean about the quarterbacks. Everybody knows how good DeAndre Hopkins is. If you were to compare him to other wide receivers, he's got to be number 1, number 2 automatically. But when you take into account that he had Big Brock throwing him the ball.
But he was like a number 1 receiver the year he had Hoyer as a quarterback.
It's really an indictment on Brock more than anything.
Yes, absolutely. Well, that's what happens when Brock Osweiler overthrows you by the Empire State Building. So I don't think there's much debate there. We're seeing consistency. He still has Deshaun Watson as his quarterback. I don't like the O-line there. I don't like it at all. But we've seen them make lemons out of lemonade over there.
True, and if they don't have that great of an O-line, that means they're running the ball less. So maybe they're passing the ball more. Passing the ball more.
And he's not afraid to throw to DeAndre Hopkins. And the great thing with DeAndre Hopkins is he's good with those 50-50 balls.
Yeah.
He's very he can get very vertical.
Yep.
Very easily. Can make one-handed catches. And he's a physical guy.
Yeah, he'll fight for the ball.
Yeah, and he'll play all over. And they do have other weapons now that'll kind of distract some attention from him. Will Fuller, Kiki QT, you got Lamar Miller still there. I didn't have him high in my running back ranks, but he is a person on the team from what I've heard.
And he's not taking any.
He has a locker.
I don't think Lamar Miller is taking any targets away from D'Angelo. D'Angelo, D-A, you know?
No. Well, and also, it's just that there's enough there that it's going to maybe take some attention away from him as far as defensive attention, because you can't just focus on him.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I don't see any time that Deshaun Watson's not going to throw it to Hopkins if he can get, and he'll throw it to Hopkins even if Hopkins is double covered sometimes.
His first look.
Yeah, it's his favorite.
And he'll give him a chance.
Yeah.
You know, if he's even, he's leaving. If it's 50-50, it's really not. They're going to give him a chance.
Well, basically, he went from college where he had Mike Williams to the NFL where he's got DeAndre Hopkins, and he kind of utilizes them the same way.
Yep, yeah.
So now we're at, I think we kind of cleared number one. What's number two for everybody?
Did we clear number one? You can go first because
Is there an imaginary
Well, I'm gonna say
person?
I'm gonna take a bet. I'm gonna say my number 2 and number 3 are kind of closer to my number 1 than maybe you guys. But I put Michael Thomas and
he doesn't remember.
OBJ closer up to the number 1 spot. More likely this year. I'm sorry.
Well,
not
I think OBJ can be the number 1 receiver, and that's the point of that's really the point of when you do these rankings.
Not OBJ though. Davante Adams.
Yeah.
OBJ fell for me by going to the Browns. He's going to have a better year than he did on the Giants, but he's got a lot of other options. Mayfield has a lot of options on that team, so I really don't think OBJ is going to get the touches that he did with the Giants, even if the ball isn't touching the ground before him. But
with a more accurate quarterback and guys taking attention away from the defense, I think OBJ, especially because what OBJ does well is run after the catch.
Yeah.
And so if he's getting, I think he'll still get 10 targets a game, but
he'll turn those into 150 yards. I think he actually has a breakout year. I mean, I think you see Jarvis Landry's production go down because
I don't think so.
I do. I really do. I understand he's got a connection with him, but we forget how good OBJ really is because he's been hurt. He's been playing on the Giants. He hasn't been out a lot of opportunities. You forget that he carried their team 3 years ago. They had nobody.
he carried the Giants,
And they were good because of him.
yeah.
Yeah.
They didn't have an offensive line, but because they were able to get the ball in their hands fast and he was able to do so well on those slants and take it 80 yards, I mean, that made all the difference in the world.
I could see both of those guys being top 12 receivers because I think they both benefit from each other being on the field.
Yeah,
both actually led. There was a couple years ago, where they both led the league in run after catch for wide receivers.
Yeah.
No, I think OBJ and Landry are gone by the second round. Both of them.
Both of them are gone by the second round.
I've seen him multiple times actually.
Well,
in
okay,
mock drafts.
I don't.
I know you don't look at mock drafts.
game
I know you
at
don't
this
look
point.
at, but I
not at this point. It doesn't
trend.
matter at this point.
doesn't matter, bro.
Doesn't matter.
Anyway, I have OBJ as my second wide receiver because I can see him. Now, my biggest worry with OBJ is injury, not production from being on the Browns. It's my biggest worry is that he's been injured the last 2 years. He played 12 games last year. He played less than that. He played 4 games the year before.
Yeah.
So that's my big worry. And he's barely ever had a healthy season.
And he's still your number 2.
Because I think that there is that valuable. Number 2 wide receiver for me is end of the first, beginning of the second.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you draft different than I do.
Yeah. So it depends on where you position your receivers.
I just don't. So I'm going to go back to my guys, Michael Thomas and Davante Adams. I don't see. They are number 1 guys, clear, far from the rest of the other guys on teams with very good quarterbacks in good divisional situations for themselves. I don't know why the division has anything to do with it, but I'm just saying like they're the clear-cut number 1 wide receivers in their division. Forget the team.
And this is my cluster right here is 1 through 5. It goes DeAndre Hopkins, OBJ, Julio Jones, Davante Adams, Michael Thomas. And I think you could rotate any of those guys there, and I wouldn't argue with you.
Yeah.
Because I think, first off, Michael Thomas has thrown 3 years in a row has been wide receiver 6. That's consistency.
Yeah.
That's what you want. If you're drafting a wide receiver high, you want that level of consistency. Yep. Davante Adams was wide receiver 3 last year, was wide receiver 8 in 2016, wide receiver 14 in 2017. He's again a picture of consistency at wide receiver. He's gotten better and better. I love watching him run routes. I love watching his release off the line of scrimmage. He's great at catching the ball over the shoulder. He's a red zone threat. He's probably one of the most universally rounded receivers that I've seen and get to watch play football.
Very physical too.
Yeah. and he's like a basketball player playing football.
Who's this?
Michael Thomas.
Michael
No,
Thomas.
I'm talking about Davante Adams.
Okay, that's
I
why I
got
wanted
lost.
to make sure.
Yeah, Davante Adams
Yeah.
has one of the best releases off the line of scrimmage. Plays outside a lot more of the time than Michael Thomas. They'll run him out of the slot. They will manufacture touches for him. You saw he had a ridiculous catch rate last year at the beginning of the year. And both those guys, again, I agree with you. I think both of them are just amazing. That's why this top 5 portion for me is it could be any of them.
Yeah.
I think the risk is relatively low with any of those 5.
I think it's
except for maybe OBJ.
And it's, to me, I'm not saying it's like too confusing for me, but I'm just thankful with my draft strategy. I'm not looking at any of these guys. Just the way I draft. But yeah.
Well,
Yeah, he likes Bilal Powell.
No, it's not that. I go RB1, and then I'm looking at second and third round wide receivers.
But these guys could be there in the second and third round.
Maybe.
And you know what? That's why I don't make the assessment right now.
I say the next guy may be a good second.
So
round
who's
pick.
so?
Well, I actually agree with your top 5 in no particular order. Like
Correct.
they're all just
Absolutely.
kind of, with the exception, and this is where the hot take
OBJ?
comes in. No, the exception is Davante Adams. I would take him out of the top 5, and I would put in Juju Smith-Schuster. I think Juju Smith-Schuster has a breakout year. Everybody's sleeping on Ben. You hate Ben. Let me tell you something. Juju is a star. He's complete. You want to talk about everything you used to describe Davante Adams? Juju is better at every single one of those things. He just, maybe you want to make the argument that Aaron Rodgers is a better quarterback than Roethlisberger. Absolutely.
I love Juju. He's further down my list. You know what he does really well? Run after the catch.
Yes.
He is a mixture of Anquan Bolden and Michael Crabtree.
Great.
I love watching his tape. He knows how to post up really well. Like he's got the vertical ability of Michael Crabtree, and he's got that run after the catch of Anquan Bolden.
Yeah.
Plays really well out of the slot. He can play outside, but I think he's best in the slot. He's a big slot role, but he's a big red zone threat. I don't disagree with loving him. I just think there's so many questions still as to what he can be. And I love
Roll the
watching.
dice, baby.
I think he's going to get covered like no tomorrow.
Oh, because they don't have Antonio Brown. Well, let me
Not
tell you
even
something.
because
I
of
think
Antonio Brown.
they're taking-
I think they have nobody else. I think they can let wide receivers go uncovered.
That's not ever going to happen. That's not true.
I'm not saying I'm just saying like
That's the big mistake that people make, is that they think that just because there's not a 1A guy, right? Like he's not going to have AB, that he's going to be a liability because they're just going to double cover him. But they could double cover him, and I think that's the big risk. But they can't just totally sell out to cover Smith-Schuster.
no. What I think though is that they'll cover other wide receivers with linebackers, and because they're covered with linebackers,
You can't cover Dante Moncrief with a linebacker.
Listen,
Boom!
Who's the number 2 wide receiver on the Steelers?
Dante Moncrief right now.
I'll take him over Juju.
I don't like that concept, but okay.
I'm just saying. I think that
I don't
he'll
think-
have more
now you're
completions.
just trying to be inflammatory.
No,
Yeah.
I think he'll have more completions over Juju because of the coverage. I think the
I
Steelers.
think Ben is the type of guy that will force it to guys, and I think he will force it to Juju in a good way because it's going to give Juju more opportunities. All right, and he's going to make those plays. Look, I think about back when Brandon Marshall was on the Broncos and didn't really have anyone else, and they would force the ball to him, and he was getting all the catches, getting all the yards, getting all the touchdowns, despite the fact that all the coverage went to him. Okay, and I could see Juju being in the same role. He is their guy. He's the guy. You can make the argument that, yeah, that's going to get him more attention from defenses, but it's also going to get him more attention in terms of getting him the ball. They're going to create schemes to get him the ball.
And that's what Juju for me is wide receiver 15 because there's still that little bit of risk. I still think that, yes, he's going to get double covered. He's going to be running a lot of the slot, which you get a little bit more of a release out of the slot. He's going to be able to utilize more of the field.
Separation creates separation.
And again, he's great after the catch. That's the one thing that I love watching with him is watching him break tackles, watching him taking something short and going an extra couple yards with it. So I don't hate Juju in the top 5. If he still had AB on that team, I would both have him top 10. Because there's no Antonio Brown and there's not another quality receiver. Like I think Dante Moncrief, we'll see what ends up coming out of him.
I think Moncrief is a
Jag.
no. I think that's a great pick. Moncrief.
Oh, you like Moncrief?
I really do like Moncrief. He's young. He's still moving in the upwards direction as far as a wide receiver, and I think Juju is going to take a lot of attention away from him. And if Ben can't make the passes that he has to make, I think Moncrief is going to be that, like, not saying always there, But I'm going to say he's going to be the easier throw, the easier target. And if it comes down to it, he's not going to want to throw into double coverage. He can throw into... And Moncrief is a big person.
And then, keep in mind, they'll still have Vance McDonald. They'll still have James Conner. So their running backs catch out of the backfield.
Yeah.
Their tight end, I actually like Vance McDonald a lot.
Yeah.
They got
So
rid
I
of,
think there's other weapons there than just Dante Moncrief.
Yeah.
You're not legitimately restricted to just your wide receiver.
Right, but I think it should be noted. Like, I think Dante Moncrief is a good fit there. I haven't traditionally liked him in the past, but
it's a
he
good
might end up
situation.
having his best season yet. Where
I think it's very possible.
Situationally, it's a really good place to be.
He's one of the few guys I haven't done as much tape study on because he was a signing. You don't know if they have a guy in house they want to replace him with. They drafted a receiver, Deontay Johnson. They also have James Washington there. So I didn't do the tape study.
Don't
just
sleep on him
yet.
either. Don't sleep on him.
Don't sleep on any of those guys. And that's the top 5. And then I have Tyreek Hill in his own category.
Yes.
The big risk, but the guy was wide receiver number 1 last year in some leagues. He's a legit threat, man. And he's getting balls thrown to him by Pat Mahomes. They scheme him open. He runs the ball. He'll do a lot of jet sweeps. If you're in a league that'll let you have a return, let him to use the return touchdowns as well.
I think he's easily a top 5 guy.
Yeah,
I really do.
I have him at 6 because I feel safer with the other 5 considering there's still that risk of...
Yeah, they're going to play for the most part. I mean, outside of injury, which you can't really predict, they're going to play.
And actually, of those 5 guys, OBJ is the one that's the highest risk
Right.
for injury.
We talked about this on the last podcast, buyer beware on Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
I think all that confirmed was that he was going to stay a Chief, but not necessarily something. Another recording comes out. Everyone just delete their recordings off of their phones.
Well, you don't always know when you are being recorded.
But yeah,
That's
I can see the NFL just giving him a cheap little 2-game suspension just for being named in an article or something like that.
And it's proved that he's a knucklehead. It's that this has happened. He's had other issues. He's had other issues before he was in the NFL.
There's a pattern.
Yeah, and that's the risk with Tyreek Hill, and that's why I'm not jumping to grab him right away in most drafts. But
I'd rather have him on my real team than my fantasy team.
Yeah,
that's what it comes down to me.
And then I have another bracket of wide receivers, and it goes AJ Green, Mike Evans, Keenan Allen, Thielen, and Diggs. And AJ Green, we talked in another podcast, the big news that he might have a sprain, got injured, went down in practice. When we're recording this, we don't know what's gone on with him. Assuming he plays this year, I have him in that category. He's a great receiver. He was wide receiver 10 in 2017. He only played 8 games in 2018, and he had double-digit fantasy points every week, and only had lower than 15 points once. And he was averaging 16.87 points a game. He was 12th in fantasy points per game. So I love AJ Green. I think that he's a guy who's going to continue. If he's healthy, he's going to continue to produce. They find ways to produce.
He's a pretty safe pick overall.
That's what I'm saying. He played 8 games last year, but all the other games that he played were good.
Yeah. And people forget, he's been banged up before. He's had injuries before, and he plays through them. Still puts up numbers.
Iron Man.
He's an Iron Man. Yeah.
Well, he played 8 games last year. He had
I understand,
a couple other seasons where he didn't play.
Those 8 games that he played, he had injuries.
Yeah.
That weren't necessarily keeping him out.
Yeah.
But my point is, and in years past, he's had them. Obviously, there's certain things you just can't play with because you're doing your team a disservice. So I understand that. And it's going to do your longevity of your career a disservice if you push through it. So I understand him missing those 8 games. But traditionally speaking, he's not getting a hangnail and bouncing.
Yeah. I just meant it more along the lines of he's been injured before. He can get injured again.
Right.
There is that risk there. They got a new head coach in there. So we don't know what his offensive system's going to be like. We assume it's going to be similar to what Sean McVay runs. And we know he at least has good chemistry with Andy Dalton. So I put A.J. Green in this category. Mike Evans, big receiver. We've seen him consistently post up more 1,000-yard seasons every year he's been in the NFL.
Even with a quarterback that's shoddy.
Yeah, and put up 1,500 yards last year and 8 touchdowns with 2 different quarterbacks.
I like Mike Evans. I mean, there's no proving that you don't really have an argument against him as far as whether he produces or not.
Yeah.
My problem with Mike Evans is just the people that are below him right now. It's in that bracket with you. I have all three of those guys above him.
Keenan Allen, Thielen, and Diggs.
Yep.
And I can understand people feeling that way.
Yeah.
And I put him there because I think he's the picture of consistency. He wide receiver 9 in 2018, wide receiver 17 in 2017, wide receiver 2 in 2016. Like my biggest problem with Mike Evans, he drops the ball every once in a while.
Of that group, I would put him at the top, followed by AJ Green, then Diggs, Thielen, and Keenan Allen wouldn't be there. Keenan Allen, you too slow.
You got a personal issue with Keenan Allen.
Keenan Allen shouldn't. Look, he's in the next tier. All right, I'll put him above T.Y. Hilton and Brandon Cooks, but I will take Amari Cooper and insert him into that group. Not Amari Cooper, Antonio Brown, and insert him into that group.
All right.
All right. So, and the reason is I think that Derek Carr comes back this year. We see the return of Derek Carr. I know you don't like John Gruden. Listen, we've talked about John Gruden. I don't care. Okay, Antonio Brown's a stud. Derek Carr is much better than people have been treating him. In the media. I mean, they act like this guy was trash from the beginning, or he's Bortles or something. I don't get it. He's he returns to form this year. I'm taking it to the bank.
I hope he does. I just don't believe it while John Gruden's there. Unfortunately, I think he will eventually become a starting quarterback.
John Gruden is there so that they can have good HBO ratings, right? That's what he's there. Clear eyes, full heart, can't lose.
I love Keenan Allen. I like Keenan Allen, Thielen, and Diggs are some of the best route runners in the NFL. Right. I don't think anybody can argue against that. I think Diggs is actually the most athletic of the three.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, by far. By far.
But he doesn't get the targets the other two do.
No, and he doesn't have the quarterbacks the other two do, even with the...
Thielen has the same quarterback.
No, I'm saying Thielen has the same quarterback.
They actually rotate him out when they throw the ball to Thielen. I don't know how defenses haven't picked up on it yet.
I just think Cousins I think Cousins is deserving of the rant that Carr gets.
Well, I think the thing is Thielen plays a lot more out of the slot. He gets a lot easier coverage. He's a lot more moving around the line. He gets open quicker. He's more available. Cousins loves throwing to the slot receiver. You saw it when he was in Washington. That's why Thielen went on a rampage of ridiculous production last season early on. I think it was how many 8 straight games of 100 yards.
Yeah,
and I think that both him and Diggs are going to do well this year too. I think they might even do better.
Yeah, no, I do see them doing better.
I think Diggs might separate from Thielen a little bit more this year, though. I'm not taking anything away from Thielen. I just think that Diggs is a better receiver.
He's a better receiver, but I think the slot wide receivers are being heavily touted this year.
Yes, I understand.
As a bigger position.
I think, look, I'm not saying Cousins is all that. I'm saying that another year getting comfortable in the system, he's going to start to develop even greater chemistry. He's going to identify that Diggs is the true number one. I think last year it was kind of like, we'll spread the ball around. I got all these options. They're both strong receivers. But eventually you end up getting a favorite, and I think that'll be Diggs.
Well, and just that coverage is
open quicker, like you said. It's a quick, he's there. He's also a bigger play threat.
Who, Diggs?
Yes.
Oh, no, I agree. Diggs is a much more athletic receiver, can get vertical.
Minneapolis Miracle. That's all you got to watch. One play.
Yeah. Well, I always, whenever I think of Diggs, I think of Odell Beckham. I think that he's maybe 80 to 90% of Odell Beckham.
Mm-hmm.
And to be 80 to 90% of Odell Beckham still being a great receiver.
Last year when he was a Giant, that wasn't a big statement. Now he's a Brown. That's a huge statement. Come on, you're drinking the orange punch a little bit too much.
You're the one that drafted all the Browns.
Last year?
In the previous, whatever.
Didn't you draft Isaiah Crowell in the third round one year?
If they were actually Browns? No. The one thing though,
According to you, that's what won
the
war.
biggest question about Adam Thielen is when does he actually go to the Patriots? Because if there's ever a Patriot wide receiver not on the Patriots, it's Adam Thielen.
Yeah, I think that's where he'll end his
career.
career.
The Patriots trade for Adam Thielen this year?
Our conversation about Davante Adams and Michael Thomas didn't make it into the podcast so far.
Well, they're nice people.
They're nice people.
They might watch this. I don't know.
Yeah, Thielen, a great route runner, slot receiver, but again, and I think, but they will get more chances because they drafted O-line. They invested in the O-line in the offseason.
Correct, absolutely.
So I think
that's
they'll have
something Cousins definitely needed.
And also, I think having Dalvin Cook back, they're going to have that ability to run the ball more.
I forgot
so maybe do
about
more
him.
Play action.
Here's my keeper.
What
do more play action, get the ball out to Diggs, and like I said before, I think Diggs is a better red zone threat than Thielen.
100%. He's just a taller target.
He's not much taller, actually.
I think he might be shorter
When they jump.
Well,
yeah, that's.
I mean, I guess that was my point. But yeah.
Anyway, so that's that section of my.
That's the.
And that's that. All right. No, I'm just kidding.
So
you'd follow him on Twitter.
The next section of wide receivers that I have are T.Y. Hilton, Brandon Cooks, Amari Cooper, Juju Smith-Schuster, and I'll even include Antonio Brown and Jarvis Landry in that grouping.
Yeah, no, you got to include those two guys.
Well, I kind of like those are the two guys I'm a little wishy-washy on. Like that's probably the lowest I'll put them. But again, with so let me put this: T.Y. Hilton and Brandon Cooks, I love watching. Both are very athletic. They use T.Y. Hilton not just like on deep routes. They use him in crossers. They try to get the ball in his hands. He is a wide receiver 1 on his team, and he is fast. And he honestly, I don't think he gets the credit he deserves.
You got to sell me more on them though, because
Wide receiver 4 in 2016, wide receiver 14 in 2018, was 10th in fantasy points per game, missed 2 games last year.
You asked.
I did ask, because literally he said he's the starting wide receiver on his team and he's fast, which all those guys are. But then,
I was getting to the second page.
Except Keenan Allen.
But this is the thing, though. I mean, T.Y. Hilton, I just feel like he's, in my opinion, he's getting drafted because he's the wide receiver 1 on Andrew Luck's team.
Wide receiver 4 in 2016.
Okay, 2016 is
wide receiver
3 years
14
ago.
last year.
Okay, 14, you have him at 12.
And missed 2 games.
Okay.
So he was 10th in fantasy points per game.
What was Antonio Brown? Go over Antonio Brown's.
He was 5th. Well, we mean fantasy points per game because he played 15 games last year. He was the 5th wide receiver in fantasy last year. But he was on a different team, and that's my big worry with Antonio Brown. He's on a different team. I understand other people want to take that risk.
I think he's on a better situation as far as team. Yeah. I mean, okay, Roethlisberger's versus Carr. Carr is the younger guy. Okay, I'm
Carr
not
had a hard last 2 years.
He had a hard because Antonio Brown wasn't on the team. I mean, look what
you had Amari Cooper.
Amari Cooper. Okay, where's Amari Cooper on your list?
He's up here. Amari, but he was apparently made by Apple. He's got Amari I. Cooper.
Amari I. Cooper.
The I. Cooper 10.
Saying he's a robot. But
I think that's what happened. He got traded to Dallas, and then they implanted him.
Will Smith's playing him in the next movie.
No, but I think Antonio Brown is going to have a better year than T.Y. Hilton. Not the other guys in that category. I just think T.Y. Hilton's at the bottom of that bracket again.
Oh, you think he's at the bottom of those 6 or 7 guys?
Yeah, and I think Antonio Brown's at the top.
Really?
Other than Juju.
Juju.
I made my case for Juju before. You
put him at 15 though.
I put him at 15, but I did make the argument as to why I think he deserves at least this area of the rank. He was wide receiver 8 last year. He was wide receiver 8,
and you have him at 15
because there are like reasons to worry about risk with it.
I understand. I understand these are projections. You can't just go based off last year. Otherwise, what's the point of doing rankings?
Yeah.
We'll just go off the numbers.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Brandon Cooks for a little bit.
Like him. Always liked him. Drafted him all the time. Everybody didn't know about him. Dude, I was on the bandwagon. I'm off this year.
You're off?
Wow.
I'm not off entirely. I'm just not going to draft him in like the first round like I've done in previous years.
Oh, okay. Well, first off, I don't think you have to worry about taking him in the first round. Probably his second or third round.
Yeah, thanks, Wilch. I know.
Wide receiver 15 with New England. Wide receiver 13 in 2018 with the Rams. And was wide receiver 9 when he was in New Orleans. He's finally going to be... He's been on 3 different teams the last 2 years.
Yeah.
The last 3 years. And he's been a top 15 receiver all 3 years.
Yeah. No. My point is, I've always expected him to be that top 5 guy.
Yeah.
And it hasn't happened. So when I say off the bandwagon, I'm like, fine, Woj. We'll rank him at 13. Oh, okay. I won't reach for him anymore.
And
okay, I get that.
My situation with Cooks is the quarterback. Goff is another guy who spreads the ball around a lot.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of weapons in LA.
But he did that last year.
He's got a lot of weapons in
LA.
LA.
Right, but I think that he's got a real connection with Cooper Kupp. I think that
coming off an ACL
Woods
injury
is really coming into his own.
I've watched a lot. The first guy whose film I watched when I started doing all this tape study was Robert Woods. Robert Woods gets a lot of short stuff, a lot of quick outs, a lot of a lot of
PPR, a lot of PPR.
Yeah, if you're in PPR, but keep in mind, part of it was like a lot of slot stuff, a lot of movement stuff. I don't think Robert Woods is a league average receiver. That is and he just happens to be in a good situation. Brandon Cooks is a good receiver, and he's going to be in a good situation. And I think they're going to get him the ball, and I think he's going to be more involved in the offense. And even if he's not, he was wide receiver 13 last year, which is where I have him this year. I don't think he's going to take a step back. If anything, the thing I would take a step back is the whole offense.
Yeah.
Jared Goff, the O-line's changed up a little bit. Todd Gurley might not be playing as much. They lost two interior offensive linemen. Whitworth is really fucking old. Like, their left tackle is like an antique now. Like, they might have to go out and get one from the junkyard.
He's still very good.
Oh, he is. I love it. I love Whitworth, man.
He's also. I feel like he's also playing like some of the top defenses as far as coverage defenses in the NFC West.
I don't think those teams have the NFC West isn't as good as it used to be.
True.
In coverage.
You know what? That's definitely.
Seattle
I
Seahawks.
retract my statement.
Can we just edit that out?
No. Yeah, no. You always think like Seattle's got a sick ass defense, but
They don't have half those people anymore.
Yeah,
they
no.
don't even have Earl Thomas anymore.
no. Fuck you, Carol.
So
Still a boss move. Loved it. Loved every second of it.
I don't worry about the NFC West as a division anymore.
Yeah. My biggest concern though is just the other options that are on that team. Those are like that's a hell of a wide receiver core.
Cooper Kupp's coming off an ACL.
Yep, but he's
So I think he might
I
be
think he's
slow to
coming
come
back.
back. By the way,
back.
of the guys on that team, I do love Cooper Kupp. I do like watching him play, and I also love watching Brandon Cooks play. The guy who I don't love watching play, Robert Woods. All right, I don't think he's that great of a guy. I think he plays a role in an offense.
All right, we didn't see his report card in middle school, dude.
Jesus Christ.
That great of a
Yeah,
guy.
what
I guess
were-
we're attacking
what
his
were Robert-
character now.
What were Robert Woods' numbers there since you
I
did
know
all the
what you're
study?
saying. I know what you're saying. I'm being annoying.
He's like Robert Woods
is
didn't
my
matter.
third podcast.
He didn't matter in 2016. He didn't matter in 2017. 2018, I just stopped watching him completely.
So what was Robert Woods last year?
I don't know, dude. You tell me.
Wide receiver 10, and sometimes wide
So
receiver.
why
11,
did you
depending on the
ask?
league. So I was just kind of.
Those are good. I mean, he was wide receiver 10. That's insane.
That's insanely good. It's a weird thing. That's why I had to look it up.
Wasn't Cooks
the
out?
year before he
As
was
to
wide,
prove my
hold
point.
on, hold on one sec. The reason why I wanted to bring it up, the year before he was wide receiver 34, and he also
Wasn't he
misses. Hang on, last year was the only time he didn't miss a game.
Okay. So you keep him healthy.
He's not going to stay healthy.
I think his time on the Bills is hardly an indictment on him.
Even the year he's been, even one of the years he was on the Rams, he didn't play all the games.
They were the St. Louis
That,
Rams.
wait, no, was that the Jeff Fisher Rams?
No, it was the Rams
Okay,
that we currently
okay.
see today with McVay his first year.
The ones in the Super Bowl?
No, the one that made it to the playoffs and not the Super Bowl.
Oh, okay.
So anyway,
Well, that was first year in the system. I mean, clearly he's shown that.
why
Like,
do you
when
guys
he
think
needs
that he
to step
deserves
up-
to be higher up?
No,
No, but I just think
But
that-
he's a reason why Cooks.
But
I
this isn't
said
gonna
Cook
lose-
should be where he is. I don't
All
even
right.
know what we're arguing
No,
about
I'm
anymore.
just saying
we
that-
have him in the exact
No,
same
I
spot
think-
where we're giving different
I
reasons for
think-
why we have him there.
I think Cooks. No, I don't think he should be there. But
Where
I'm
do you
just
think Cook should be?
Cook should
In the kitchen.
No, Cook should be above T.Y. Hilton at the bottom of the bracket.
So what, like wide receiver 17?
Yeah, 16, 17.
16, 17.
But what I'm saying
Splitting
is that I just
hairs.
think that if Cooper Kupp comes back healthy and Wood stays healthy, those are three wide receivers that could be the number one wide receiver on any other team other than your top
Not
five.
Robert Woods. He would not be a number one wide receiver on another team.
New York Giants.
Touche. But that's because
He didn't see that coming.
I'm sorry, who had the second pick in the draft?
Huh?
Who had the first pick in the draft? Arizona Cardinals. There's another team who'd be wide receiver one.
no, he wouldn't.
Larry Fitzgerald's still there.
But I think he's a better wide receiver than
No,
Larry
he's not.
Fitzgerald.
No, he's not.
We really need to edit this.
We're not
out.
getting into this.
We're not. He's not. People are not going to want him
We're
back
not-
on here.
yeah.
I'm sorry. Where's Robert Woods and where's Larry Fitzgerald? Since you have 74
Larry Fitzgerald's right there. Robert Woods is actually above him.
above him.
I believe in the offense. I'm still saying,
You
hey,
guys are crucifying, saying like people
I'm
aren't going to want me.
defending Robert Woods. I
No.
just said I don't think he's better than Larry
You have him
Fitzgerald.
ranked.
I have him ranked as a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 fringe. The reason why I'm worried about Larry Fitzgerald is it's a new head coach who the head coach has never been in the NFL before.
Kyler.
I believe in Kyler, but that doesn't mean like they're going to utilize Larry Fitzgerald.
I think Kyler would be good in
This
2020.
is not. Kyler Murray's not a wide receiver.
No,
Let's
This
stay on
is the
top.
wide receiver show. All right, let's talk about Amari I. Cooper. I know you had him higher.
Yeah, the sequel to iRobot. I had him higher, but not much higher.
All
Like
right.
I had him maybe. What did I say? I said I put Keenan Allen at the top of this. He's behind Keenan Allen. Then probably Brandon Cooks and T.Y. Hilton are kind of interchangeable.
And I can totally agree with the argument on that. Like
I forget where my rankings are because these are your rankings,
Yeah.
and
he was wide receiver 19 in 2018. He was averaging 8 points a game after he got switched to Dallas, which would have been wide receiver 10 if that rate held up the whole season. Most likely it would. But that's, it's a good argument for you. But, and not for nothing, getting traded midseason and performing that well is impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do think that there is the risk that people start rolling to him and kind of more addressing him now, because again, it was only half a season he was there.
I don't like Amari Cooper, like as far as like he's not someone I'm looking to take in a fantasy
someone I'm
draft.
looking to hang out with.
But what he did with Dallas last year was scary. Like it was almost like he brought that team alive.
Yeah,
and it was just scary, to be honest with you. So I was just like, okay, well, we got something here.
Yeah. I think he fits what they need to do. I think they need that number one receiver. He gets open really well. And
as long as he gets the latest software update, we'll be all right.
That's why I have him in that like Juju Smithshuster, Brandon Cooks, T.Y. Hilton. And maybe when I do a finalized version of these ranks, maybe I'll have him higher. Maybe I'll keep him at the same spot.
Maybe he'll be
this
human.
Bracket, I honestly do think Jerry Jones implanted him with something.
Yeah. Maybe he'll go to Team Samsung. But
Whoa. Androids. Do you have a droid?
Nope.
All right, let's stay on topic.
And 16 and 17 are Antonio Brown and Jarvis Landry.
Well, I've been over this. Antonio Brown's higher.
All right, let's talk about this though. Better wide receiver duo, Jarvis Landry, Odell, or Thielen Diggs
This year?
this year?
It's hard to tell.
This
because we
year,
haven't
I
see it yet.
Well, no, I wasn't asking you easy questions that you had the answers to.
Honestly,
I want you to think a little bit. Jesus.
If Odell
That's a good
Beckham,
question.
It's a good question. If Odell Beckham
Which means
and
I don't have
Jarvis
the answer.
Landry were both playing the same level they were at their best when they were like a couple years ago when they were leading the league and run after catch.
I'm just talking about this year.
I'm saying, well, we don't know.
Exactly. That's the
So
point. So
I'm making
what's
the
your
argument of saying they could be if you see them rise back to what they were doing 2 years ago.
Okay.
Doesn't mean they will be, but
Yeah.
I think there's a very high likelihood that they could be.
I agree with you for one different reason. My reason's simple. It's just quarterback. I honestly think that
Baker Mayfield's better than
exactly.
Which goes back to what we opened the show with. In terms of like a lot of their value has to do with something that has nothing to do with them.
Exactly. I think they both even out. Like I think both Stephon Diggs and Thielen are better than Landry, but Odell Beckham Jr. is a lot better than the two of them. They even out, give them a better quarterback.
I think
That's who
Thielen.
wins.
I think Jarvis Landry is better than Thielen.
Not right there.
Well, I don't know how it's going to play out. So I've seen the consistency with Thielen.
See, what you're doing here is almost like what I said before in terms of I think OBJ actually suppresses some of Jarvis Landry's production. I don't know. Like we've seen Diggs and Thielen. Right, but we've seen Diggs and Thielen. Well, that's what. Yeah, but I still think he'll do well because I think Baker takes another step. But it all evens out because
he's going to get less attention though too.
Yes.
I think Jarvis Landry is going to get less attention, and
I still
then
think
he's going to be
OBJ
able
is
to
going to get less attention.
I think we've seen Thielen and Diggs be able to. The ball gets spread around with Cousins right now. I mean, I do think we're going to see an uptick in production for Diggs and maybe a little bit less for Thielen this year as he gets more comfortable with figuring out who his number one really is. But I don't know. I feel like OBJ just takes a lot of the thunder away from everybody else. It's not a negative. He's just that caliber of receiver.
Yeah, he's going to get hurt.
And they're also going to have a lot of weapons on that team. Like Rashad Higgins is good, Antonio Callaway is good, David Njoku, Nick Chubb.
Callaway is good. Chubb,
getting a nice big Chubb.
I forgot that OBJ really got hurt last year. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah.
Is there anybody who you think belongs in this top 17 that's not in there?
Emmanuel Sanders, baby. Everyone forgets about him, including myself, and then I pick him up off waiver wires, and then he wins me weeks. So I'm done. I'm done giving up on him. I don't know that I'd put him ahead of anybody else up here.
He's coming off an injury.
Yeah, I would probably put him ahead of Tyler Bourne, bro. But I mean, that's
the next episode.
What do you mean?
We're gonna start
right, but I can still
spoiler alert.
I can still spoiler alert. Tyler Boyd might be on the next episode, considering he wasn't on this episode, and he is a receiver in the NFL.
Yeah.
Yes, but my point is, I think Emmanuel Sanders might be at the top of the spoiler alert next list.
Gotcha.
What about some veteran wide receivers that might be coming back into the NFL, considering what the Giants are going through right now?
I don't think anybody's going to willingly go back on the Giants unless they were like their family members being held
All right,
at gunpoint.
all right. I'll just jump to my big question. Do you think Des Bryant could be a New York Giant?
I mean, I wouldn't draft him if he was.
No. I get it. It's a fantasy episode. We get it.
Where's Demaryius Thomas?
He's on the Patriots.
Right. Do you think that lasts?
If
I was the Giants, maybe I'd try to trade for him.
I don't think they're going to trade him. I think the Patriots.
Well, I don't think they make good
They
moves.
have nothing to trade.
Picks.
For Demaryius Thomas, though?
But what did they get from Cleveland as far as like this upcoming? Did they get any
Nothing.
like 2020 stuff?
No.
Jesus. God,
I said, please take him.
the Giants are so bad.
Oh yeah. This is a fun episode.
Oh, this is good.
It is a fun episode. I wouldn't be surprised if Cortland Sutton sneaks into the top 20
In your ranks.
in everybody's ranks.
I like Calvin Ridley. I
In the
like Calvin
numbers.
Ridley.
I like
Right.
Calvin Ridley, too.
I like Calvin Ridley too. We'll talk about those guys in the next episode of Draftvice.
Which was very...
Yeah. If you want to follow the podcast, follow it at Draftvice on Twitter, at Draftvice_football on Instagram. You can follow me at Brojo Death Punch. That should be
Yeah, just type that in, and he'll also follow you.
And it'll,
Brojo does
it'll
punch.
take you nowhere.
Yeah, BROJO. Death is in the end of life. Punch is in like what Steve kind of wants to do to me at the end of this podcast for having him on. And
He's having the time of his life.
he probably is. He's like, I can't believe that it's not butter.
Can't believe that it's not butter. All right.
Steve, you can follow Steve at Pums142.
And we also
Bi-State Fantasy League.
Bi-State Fantasy League now has an Instagram. I got some cool stuff going on. I'm going to do some owner profiles coming up soon. So
Groovy.
yeah.
And
Cool.
if you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe, watch some of the other videos. You can even like the video. You can even leave a comment. We won't read it, but you could leave a comment.
We'll read it.
We'll read it.
We'll
Nobody reads comments.
Nobody
I
leaves
read
comments on
comments.
YouTube anyway.
Nobody leaves comments. I want to read them. Leave the comments so I can read them.
You just blew out somebody's eardrum.
And
5.
And if you want, we request that you leave a review on iTunes if you're listening to it on iTunes or Spotify, whatever podcast app you're using. Subscribe to it, rate, leave a review. Say that you love Ricky's voice. Say that you love Steve's voice. Say that you love Steve's face.
Let's not get carried away.
And,
Look at this
If you
face.
have any fantasy questions,
I can't
send it up
cover.
to the Draftvice Twitter. Peace out,
The
everybody.
longest sign off ever.
When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous about the past and about the future.